So you guys know, I'm really sorry I couldn't be there. Speaking of already, I have found out that I have bronchitis, so I'm trying not to get anyone else sick, and I'm taking the entire day off. Dr. Brown's nice enough to let me do this, so here we go. So this is my theory into practice presentation. I'm going to start off with my worst experience. As all of you know, I despise this book, Gauss Gallus. And Anthony and Joe now read it for a lit circle, so they kind of probably understand a little bit of my hatred. The reason I really didn't like this book is because of the way it was written. I hated the way it was written. And it's not because it was in diary form, it's just the way that the author presented it. Her, like Alice as a character, the story was very up and down, all over the place. It didn't really connect. It was very melancholy. It was very 5-year-old-ish. That's how I like to describe it, because I feel like it was not mature writing in the slightest, especially for what was supposed to be a teenager. So there's that, and I understand that teenagers feel up and down, and that might be the only relation, but I also didn't relate to it at all. And maybe it's because of what she was going through. It didn't connect to me at all at the time and now, so I still don't connect with it. I just hate this book. But to go off that, the reason this was more of a worse experience is because of the way, again, educational standpoint, the way it was taught. Now, with all the other books I ever was taught in high school, I feel like this was never really the case, even though it's happened a couple times. But in this case, it was just really stuck out, where, you teach the novel, except you're not really teaching anything beyond the fact that you just want them to read it. There was no major discussion going off of certain things. It was just, oh, did you notice this? Okay, let's move on. Nothing really significant. There was no thorough discussion on why certain things were happening, so we were confused. Also, the teacher did the quiz thing, where it was just little details and not anything significant. There wasn't anything we could take off of it into future things. It was just significant details, like, for example, what drug did Alice take? Where did she want to? To me, that's not really important, and we've all discussed that it really isn't, especially for teaching, so there's no point to it. So she did that a lot with this, and she also did the packets, and I don't know if we've discussed this at all, but she just had packets of questions that we're supposed to answer. It pretty much followed the same kind of thing as the quizzes did. It was just little details we had to pay attention to. Nothing majorly important or significant to anything we're going to be learning throughout the year. And maybe it was just a teach to the test type of novel. We don't know. But I do know that as negative of an influence as we had with the book, along with the teacher, she's never taught it again. My sister has taken the exact same grade level with her, and she never read it once. So, in a way, I'm kind of glad this is not done anymore, and I really don't see why anyone would teach it in the first place after reading it. But just going off that, I think the other reason it failed, and I feel like that none of her interactions with the book worked for me, was because I didn't take anything from it. I didn't connect with it. I also feel like she was very negative about it. She was never had a positive attitude when teaching it. So in that case, why would we have been positive about reading the book in the first place? That part always bothered me. So, going off that, I searched or explored 2 different theories. The first one I'm going to talk about is the attribution theory that was originated by a psychologist named Bernard Weiner. He made this, or created this theory as a framework, and it had become really influential, especially with the socio-psychological aspects of things, but then later on developed into, as we know now, is a learning theory. So there's that. The definition of it is that there's an assumption that people try to determine why people do what they do. Or another way of putting it is interpreting the causes to an event or situation or behavior. In this case, the attribution theory is more of a behaviorist theory, so it focuses along behavior. And in this case, there's a 3-stage process that Weiner had went through. He looked at first how behavior should be observed or perceived before continuing to the next one, which is behavior needs to be determined to be intentional. Like, so behavior needs to be seen as something that's done purposefully and not just, oh, it's an accidental behavior that could easily just be flipped like a switch. And then going off that, behavior needed to be attributed to internal or external causes, whatever those may be. So something that's either happening within or something that's happening outside and affecting others. Weiner wanted this behavior to be, or this theory to be more focused on achievement and getting, well, in this case, getting students to that high achievement level and avoiding all the negative behaviors that could come out of things. And it can be attributed to effort, luck, ability, and level of task difficulty, which after reading those, it clicked in my head that I've actually learned about those in educational psychology and psychoadolescence. So I have some prior knowledge about this. It's really interesting because when we talked about those in those classes, we kind of went off other things such as like, you know, again, achievement and how you're supposed to achieve, like get to that higher level and to go through this whole process, and all those attributions needed to be accomplished before that achievement level could be gained at all. So there's my connection with that. The other theory that I looked at, it's a fairly new one. It's called multiliteracies. And this was originated by the New London Group, which is a US group, who focused on, on something that actually has to do with the definition, which is the assessment of how new technologies are influencing society and how it is affecting education in this case. So at first it started with the technology, but went beyond and looked at things that were happening within education that could help bring these new technologies to light and how these changes were affecting everything. The theory of multiliteracies accepts and encourages wide ranges of linguistic, cultural, communicative, and technological perspectives and tools, in this case, for students to use. So they want them to just have a wide variety of things to use. And in this case, the New London Group says that schools must adapt to these changes that are happening with technology and education, and even they also, after a while, included diversity because cultural aspects were being put into these multiliteracies as well, because they felt like not only should they learn different modes of technology, but also different cultures and backgrounds that were not like theirs, or even could be like theirs and could relate to them. But learning about different things rather than staying like in a monotone way of education. Going off that, it's a modality aspect that the multiliteracies are trying to follow. So they want all modes of education to be involved. In our case specifically, they want reading, writing, and speaking to be all one thing rather than a separate idea. So instead of just teaching writing, or just teaching reading, or just teaching speaking, all three of those need to be incorporated together using different activities. Weirdly enough, I just wrote my critical analysis paper that was due for this class a little while ago on this exact thing. I found an article that had to do with multiliteracies, and weirdly enough, this was in the school year 2009-2010, so all of us minus Anthony would have been juniors in high school. So the study was going on with two different teachers, and they had to incorporate these multiliteracies, the new technology and everything, into their classroom, and to observe these changes that were happening, and to show any importance that they might have within the classroom, and if it enhanced any skills or not, which was proven to do so because, weirdly enough, this was directly before the new Common Core standards were developed in 2011. So obviously this study, along with probably several other studies similar to it, proved that multiliteracies were important, and hence why they're mentioned in the standards. Because now it mentions that you must have some form of technology involved in your lessons, and also that there needs to be a lot more cultural background and multicultural aspects of literature and even writing. Again, yeah, just looking at different aspects of English. So I thought that was interesting. So it definitely is important. And going off that, I think these two theories are very important. Because, why does that? So, why did I choose these theories, and how will they enhance my learning alongside the novel Go Ask Alice? So, just connecting them together, the reason I chose these theories was because I wanted to take a deeper look into certain things my teacher could have done to maybe enhance my learning of Go Ask Alice. So, going off of the attribution theory, I think if my teacher, as I mentioned before, didn't have such a negative attitude about the book, and noticed that we were all having negative attitudes about it throughout it, and observed the fact that this was happening, noticing that these things were really intentional, that we were trying to tell her how much we hated this book, and that we weren't getting anything out of it, if she would have noticed that, maybe different things would have happened. Maybe we could have done different activities along with it, or she could have taught it differently to the point where we could understand her purpose behind teaching it. So by changing her behavior, she could have changed our behavior. Interestingly enough, I think it's weird that the theory applies more to the teacher in this case than us. So it's different. I don't know. It's very interesting that I observed that, but I think that really could have affected my outlook on this book. Even though I might not have still have liked it, I could have understood why we were learning it in the first place. Going off that, the different activities could have been the multi-literacies that I discussed as well. So that theory could be put in, maybe instead of just doing the one diary entry, ideas that I had, if I would have been put in that teacher's shoes where I would have taught different, like maybe done multiple journal entries throughout the novel, maybe focusing on different lens, or different topics within the book and how we felt about them, or going off maybe even that, like writing like we were in Alice's shoes, or writing from a different character's point of view, because we really only get to see hers due to the fact that she's writing it in journal or in diary form. In diary form, you only get to see the first person point of view, so maybe giving them different points of view to focus on would have helped too, in our case, because maybe I would have been more, and it could have increased our writing skills in that case too, rather than just focusing on getting this book done and reading it, and answering really stupid questions that have nothing to do with enhancing our learning skills, or guiding us into further things in the future. Maybe also, another idea that I had that she could have done was maybe at the end, because we knew this teacher really well. We had already had her in 7th grade, and we were going to have her again in 11th grade. So we had a really strong relationship with her. So in this case, she could have done something similar to this, like maybe give a speech on a really hard, like have us give a speech or something speaking purposes on situations that we've had that are similar, maybe like hard things, and how we escaped them. Because in this case, Alice went through all these issues with like drugs and prostitution and everything else, and she escaped them how? Again, connecting that back to the diary entries, and that's the way the book was written. The diary was her way of escaping it. So if you connect that to students, students will want to really explore deeper into how they escape from hardships in their life. I know that would have helped me, especially because at that time I was going through a lot of hard things. I'm not going to admit it because this is an educational thing. But that kind of activity really would have helped me and maybe even broadened my speaking horizons and really like my outlook on why this book was being taught or things going beyond that, and it could have helped me in my future endeavors as an English student and as a pre-service teacher. So, with that is my presentation. Thanks.